Hi everyone, hopefully you can hear me. Just give me a quick hello if you can hear me, that'd be awesome. I've got no one watching apparently and a thumbs up already. That's pretty epic. Hey, people can hear me. Jimmy, how you doing, mate? Freddie, thanks for joining, guys. I'm going to keep it relatively short this evening. So if you've seen my community thread, you'll have seen that tonight is going to be a Scape School Sunday about how to sort of budget Aquascape, substrates, and then a quick Q&A at the end. So depending on how long I take on the budget and the substrates will depend on how long the Q&As are at the end. So let's start, shall we? Let me just give a quick hello, make sure everyone's okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I won't say all your names. There's loads of you already. This is fantastic. Thank you for joining. Just a quick request. If you are enjoying the content, then hit that thumbs up button. That'd be amazing. And then even better to share it and let's spread the aquascaping love far and wide. So, budget aquascaping. So recently on my channel, you may have seen some kind of high-end aquariums. You know, I've been to the Swiss Aqua Shop in Switzerland, which focused purely on ADA. And then after that, I went to a luxury kitchen showroom. And this is all very nice and aspirational and inspirational as well, hopefully. But it's not in everyone's budget. And so I thought I'd, balance it out a little bit and talk about how to aquascape on a budget. I do have a budget playlist on my channel, which focuses on a 60 centimeter aquarium, which is actually really embarrassing right now. I'm not going to show you it. I will show you at some point when it's looking presentable, and I will go and create a new aquascape, budget-friendly aquascape in there. But yeah, budgets. Everyone has to start somewhere. A lot of us start off when we're younger and perhaps don't have so much disposable income. And it can be daunting. You know, you see these inspirational aquascapes out there in magazines, on the internet, even now on TV sometimes, etc. And it's daunting. And people are like, well, I only have X amount of dollars, X amount of pounds to spend, every month. There's no way I can afford anything like that. So I'll just run through a few tips that hopefully some of you may not have considered already. And if you're a new aquascaper, a beginner, or an experienced aquascaper, and you want to set up a new aquascape, but you maybe don't have the funds to do it, then maybe these tips can help you out. So number one, I would say, is start small. The smaller the aquarium, the smaller the system, the less cost it's going to be to one, initially set up, and two, maintain it. You need less equipment, smaller equipment, cheaper equipment, fewer plants, and so it's common sense that it's going to be less expensive. There's some really good all-in-one sort of off-the-shelf nano systems available now. Fluval do them. There's Aqua. There's lots of brands in the UK that I know of, and I know there's plenty in the US as well. So that is, if you're a beginner, that's probably your best bet, because an off-the-shelf system, you don't have to worry about customizing it. You don't have to buy the individual tank, filtration, heater, lighting, which can be a minefield, especially if you're a beginner. So I would recommend, an off-the-shelf system, and it will probably come with, it needs to come with a light, obviously a filter, and ideally a heater as well. And then what you need to do is tailor the aquascape to the capability of that system. So let's think of an all-in-one system that I'm familiar with. So in the UK, we have the Superfish Home 60 aquariums. I think Maidenhead Aquatics now are kind of sole. They have exclusive rights to them, perhaps, and might not even be called Superfish anymore. But they're a 60-litre aquarium, and it comes with LED lighting, it comes with a filter, and it comes with a heater. Now, the lighting isn't fantastic, and you'll struggle to grow demanding plants such as carpets of, Hemianthus cuba or Glossostigma, etc. But don't be put off by that. You know, there are plenty of easy plants out there, and this is what I'd recommend anyway to beginners and people on a budget. So start off with your easy category plants. Now, I'm a big fan of the Tropica range, and they come in very easy to identify categories. So they have the easy, medium, and advanced, and they're like a traffic light system. So the green is easy, orange is medium, and the red is advanced. So stick to your green category, and you can get away with low levels of lighting, no CO2 injection, and you pretty much guarantee success. So that's an ideal sort of entry level. Now, if you're really on a strict budget and you can't even afford to buy a completely new system, then there are things like online marketplaces such as eBay, and it's at your own risk. When you're buying used equipment, especially aquatics, etc. But buyer beware. However, you can get some good deals out there, and you could potentially buy a nice system for a fraction of the cost of something new. So this is something to consider also. Another consideration is to join a Facebook group. I'm sure plenty of you are online right now, 139 of you. I'm sure probably a high proportion of you are active on Facebook and maybe even active on fish keeping groups. And a lot of these fish keeping groups have for sale sections. And if they don't, you can quite easily find one and join one of these groups. And yeah, just search out, a cheap tank, cheap system, strike up, an online kind of maybe a friendship with a few people and keep your ear to the ground. And then maybe you can, find some good deals. So if you're on a strict budget, there's no excuse really not to set up another aquarium. And with aquascaping, if you want to become a better aquascaper, it's all about practice. And the best way to practice is to create more aquascapes. And arguably the best way to create more aquascapes is to buy more aquariums and related equipment. So I won't go into the details of actually how to set up an aquascape, etc. This is topics for future Scape School Sundays. But just, it might sound like a lot of common sense to you guys. A lot of you might be thinking, well, it's obvious. But, do consider, going down the second-hand route, buying super small tanks. You don't even have to stock fish. You could stock shrimp, or maybe not even stock any livestock whatsoever. You could go tiny, you could go pico size, a litre, quarter of a gallon. And you can experiment with tiny little aquascapes using really super small species of plants, mosses, tiny little plants. Loads of inspiration online. Just type in pico aquascape or micro aquascape or words like this, and you'll find lots of inspiration. And the great thing about the really, really tiny aquascapes is you can use really cheap lighting. You can go on Amazon and buy like a desk lamp, which is only a few watts, and that can just sort of hang over your aquarium and quite easily grow your chosen plants. You can do huge water changes in seconds. You can buy some airline, can siphon out using that. You can even use, instead of using CO2 injection, you could consider using carbonated water. So if you weren't aware, carbonated water, it has loads of CO2 in there, and this is going to be obviously fantastic for your plant growth. Full kind of warning: do not add carbonated water to an aquarium with livestock. It's super low pH, super high in CO2, and can potentially cause ill effect to your livestock. So do consider that. I'm just going to jump over to the comments, guys, just to make sure we've not got any trolls. I'm not sure if I've got any of my mods online this evening, so just bear with me a second. Okay, I think we're okay, guys. Just do keep an eye out, guys, for me if you don't mind. I'm getting Lizzie's on board. That's cool. She's a cool mod. Thank you, Lizzie, for joining. Super, excellent. So I'll carry on. So in a nutshell, that is budget scaping. Now chat amongst yourselves, guys, if you've got any ideas, if you've got any links, maybe. I'm not sure if you can post links on the chat, but if you've got any like external links to ideas off Amazon or any other online marketplaces where you can get these cheap products. Yeah, if you want to, basically, if you want to improve your aquascaping and you're on a strict budget, then just go small, go cheap, and still have fun with it. I've seen some super cheap systems, completely DIY. There's so many YouTube videos out there on how to actually build your own aquariums. Joey, back in the day when he started his channel, he was all about going down the pure DIY route, saving, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And, these videos are still available, so why not check them out? And there's loads of other I was watching one today from a YouTuber called Serpa Design. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this guy. I think he's got about, he must be 200,000 followers at least, subscribers. He focuses on a lot of sort of reptile stuff, but also terrariums and also aquascapes as well, and ripariums, so like a paludarium style. So check out Serpa Design. Big fan of his work. Wouldn't mind collaborating with him at some point. It seems like a really cool guy as well, and he does loads of DIY projects. So yeah, do check out his stuff. Serpa Design, yes. So that's it in a nutshell. So yeah, someone's just mentioned the carbonated water. Aquarium Adventures. Hello, Graham. How are you, mate? So yeah, just a fun fact for you. Takashi Amano actually discovered the carbonated water thing when he was in a bar, apparently, and I think he was drinking whiskey. That was his tipple. And he came up with the brainwave of he realized adding more carbon dioxide to the aquarium is going to improve your plant growth, and he realized that carbonated water would do that. So when he got home, and I think he was kind of semi drunk, and poured some carbonated water into one of his planted tanks, and hey presto, the plant started purling. If you didn't know what purling was, it's kind of photosynthesizing so rapidly that the water is absolutely saturated with oxygen, and the oxygen bubbles form on the plant leaves themselves. So this is called purling. And it's something actually that a lot of hobbyists, plant and tank hobbyists, strive for. They love to see these purling plants. Okay, I've got a few questions. I'm not going to take any questions right now, guys, because I'm going to do that right at the end if I've got time. What time are we on now? So we're 16 minutes in. Okay, great. So let's go on to substrates. Now, substrates is a really good topic because it's kind of the first thing you generally put in your aquarium. So in my mind, there's three kind of main types of substrate. You have a purely inert substrate or a cosmetic substrate. So a great example is this thin layer of white kind of gravel here. Look, it's like a fine gravel. And this serves the purpose of being like it says on the tin, just a purely cosmetic. Not ideal for plant growth. Doesn't contain any nutrients for the plant roots. Really fine sands can compact over time. When it compacts, it doesn't allow any oxygen penetration, and then you get a buildup of excess anaerobic bacteria. This can then lead to hydrogen sulfide production, which is a foul-smelling and toxic gas, and it's nasty. So personally, in my view, I would avoid fine sands like clay sand, etc., in a planted tank. If you do want to use a fine sand, I'd use a very thin layer and purely use it as a cosmetic reason, for cosmetic purposes. That said, you can grow plants in completely inert substrates. I've done it myself, and the way you can do that is to feed the plants purely through the water column. So you're feeding the plants through their leaves instead of through their roots. So if you didn't know, plants can take in food through their roots and food through their leaves. Now, if you have an epiphyte plant, so that's a plant that's attached to the wooden rocks, so mosses, got some Anubias here, some Bucophilandra here. These are all called epiphyte plants. Now, they need to take in their water through their leaves and through their roots, but via the water column. So their roots aren't buried in the substrate. So it's really important that we feed a good quality liquid fertilizer to keep those plants healthy. But you can, if you're feeding enough decent liquid fertilizers, you've got enough circulation and hopefully CO2 injection, then you can arguably grow super healthy plants in an inert substrate. So this is the cheapest way to install a substrate. Like I said, you could buy a play sand from a DIY store. Personally, I'd avoid that. Like I said, they are super fine, um, and you can lead to compaction and the consequential potential anaerobic bacteria, etc., excess anaerobic bacteria. So yes, that's the first type and the cheapest type. And I use it here, like I said, at the front. As it can work as a growth medium, but if you're serious about growing plants, then I would invest in a kind of more specialist substrate. So the second type I would go for would be a nutrient rich base layer. So you normally have like a centimeter or so of a nutrient rich product which sits on the bottom of the aquarium, and then you can top that off with the inert substrate of your choice. And this is great. So it's relatively economical. It's not going to blow your budget because you're not actually using that much product. Like I said, you're only using potentially only a thin layer, and then you're topping off with probably a much cheaper substrate. And actually, you have more creative flexibility with that, so you can choose that top layer according to your aesthetic taste. You might want to go for just an off-white natural gravel. You might want to go for a brown or a black, depending on the style of aquascape and the look that you want to achieve. So that offers you flexibility there. There are dozens of these products available. I've had experience with probably half a dozen or so. Tetra Complete Substrate, the new Aqua Forests substrate. My favorite that I've used for years, and I'm actually using in my better tank right now, is the Tropica plant substrate, which is like a clay and peat concentrate. Like I said, that sits at a 1 centimeter base layer, and then you top it off with an inert like quartz gravel with an ideal grain size of between 1 millimeter and 3 millimeters. This seems to be kind of the most the best kind of grain size aesthetically, and also to allow kind of root penetration. The potential issue with like more pea gravel size, like a 5 mil to 10 mil, is that the actual individual grains are relatively heavy, and that can restrict root growth. It's also just, I don't think it's as aesthetically pleasing unless you've got a huge aquarium. If you're using pea gravel in a smaller aquarium, you lose this sense of scale because the texture of the pea gravel is relatively large in relation to the aquarium, and so it makes the aquarium look smaller. Conversely, if you're using a fine texture, it can make the aquarium and the aquascape look larger than it really is. And with aquascaping, a lot of it is about sense of scale. So that's number 2 type. And I'll put another kind of sub chapter on the number 2 type and talk about root tabs. So root tabs are normally like a gelatin style capsule which will dissolve in the water, and then a very common kind of root tab has what we call osmocote, which is tiny little pellets which are super rich in nutrients. And you insert these well into the substrate, and you normally target feed a specific plant. And then that root capsule will, like I said, the gelatin will dissolve, and it leaves the nutrient-rich little tiny pellets of the osmocote to feed the plant roots in the longer term. So this is probably the best option if you're on a tight budget. You've got a current aquarium that you want to convert into an aquascape or a heavily planted aquarium. You don't want to strip it all down and add completely new substrate. You can add more nutrients via these root capsules. They're a very cost-effective methods. Some really good ones out there. I will refer again to my channel sponsor, Tropica. They do very good root capsules, and they're proven performers. And yeah, it's a very cost-effective way of introducing really good nutrients to your plant roots. So we'll talk about the third type now, and that is soils. Now, when I say soil, I don't mean garden soil or dirted tanks as they're referred to in the US. I don't actually have any experience using dirted tanks or garden soil or compost, or John Innes, all these kind of gardening style soils. So I can't speak with any credibility or personal experience. So I won't talk about those. This is a topic for another time, probably on another channel, because this isn't my area of expertise. Um, I do recommend ADU Aquascaping. I think he's had experience with dirted tanks, and also many of you may have heard of Dustin's fish tanks. I know he's a big fan of dirted tanks. So if you want to find out more about this style of substrate, then check those guys out. But I'm here to talk about the kind of commercially produced, complete soils, which are basically like a pelletized, baked clay based product, small kind of pellets, normally about 3 or 4 millimeters in grain size, normally quite consistent, normally a very dark brown, almost a black color. There are beige varieties as well. Um, and they're all very similar with a couple of exceptions. And you probably heard of the most well known and the original soil is called ADA Aqua Soil Amazonia. ADA is Aqua Design Amano, a company founded by Takashi Amano, and he came up with this aqua soil. Now, the Amazonia, there's 3 types. There's the Amazonia, the Malaya, and the Africana. Now, the Amazonia is the most popular type, and it's also the richest in nutrients. It has the highest amount of nitrogen, and it will give you an ammonia spike when you first install the substrate and add your water. So this is something that you kind of need to bear in mind. The ammonia spike is obviously potentially lethal to livestock. So you want to avoid adding any livestock to your aquascape with the aqua soil for at least probably the first 2 to 3 weeks. You do want to be doing huge water changes as frequently as you can in these initial weeks to dilute this ammonia spike. Otherwise, it can lead to algae. Ammonia is a huge algae trigger if you weren't aware. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, after the ADA Aquasoil came along, there was a few other brands started to be released. I think one of the first ones after Aquasoil was actually Red Sea. I'm not sure if they still produce the soil. And then Oliver Knott came along with his Nature Soil, and then there's loads that hit the market. So there's JBL ProScape, there's Colombo, there's Fluval Stratum. There's Prodibio. My personal favorite, again, is the Tropica soil, and I've been using this since it was released, so probably 3 or 4 years now, maybe even longer. And it's a proven performer. I've used it in probably over 100 scapes now, and it is great. I go to Tropica every month, and they have a tank on test using the same soil which was installed 3 years ago, and it's still working great. The plants are still growing really well. It's still retained its kind of pelletized shape as well, its form. So it is a proven long-term performer. And it doesn't have as much of an ammonia spike, if any. And most of the other brands don't have so much of an ammonia spike relative to the ADA Aquasoil Amazonia. So, but they won't potentially have as much nutrients. So it's a trade-off. The ADA Aquasoil Amazonia is regarded as the most nutrient rich, arguably the best. But if you want something that's a bit easier to kind of manage in terms of these water changes at the beginning, then you want to go for something not quite so intense on the nutrients. So I personally recommend the Tropica soil. It has two types. There's a normal type, which is like probably a 3 millimeter or 4 millimeter grain size, and it also has the powder type, which is perfect for the tissue culture plants with a really delicate root structure. So like the 1-2 grow, which generally are tiny sort of baby plants, and you're going to really kind of struggle to put them in like a big grain of gravel or potentially soil. So that the soils also have other benefits. They tend to reduce the pH. They make the water more acidic, and they also reduce the hardness as well. They reduce the TDS. of your water. So beneficial for softer water loving fish, and most plants also prefer a softer water as well. So these soils actually, have more of a therapeutic value to the water as well. They're not just there to feed the plant roots. They actually have a benefit for the water chemistry as well. They also have a high cation exchange capacity, which means they can take in nutrients from the water and lock them into the soil and make those nutrients then available to the plant roots. So that, in a nutshell, guys, is the 3 types of soil substrate. Sorry, your plain inert stuff like your sand or your gravel with no nutrients, your nutrient-rich base layer, and combined with potentially your root capsules, or you can use root capsules with your plain substrate as well. And then the third type, and arguably the best type, but the most expensive type, is the commercially available aquarium soil, such as ADA, Aqua Soil Amazonia, or Tropica soil. They'd be the 2 that I would personally recommend to you guys. I'm just going to check out the comments, guys. I do think someone has left a super chat. So yes, Aquascaping. That's a cool name. €2.29. Thank you so much. That's really appreciated. Not left a question or anything, I don't think. So wow, there's so many comments. Thank you guys, really appreciate that. If you're enjoying the content, guys, give me a thumbs up. That'd be awesome. There's 172 of you watching, so that would be awesome to get some more likes. The more you like the video, the more YouTube kind of realizes it's good content, and hopefully it'll promote it and more people can watch the video, which means we're spreading the message of aquascaping across the world, which is what my goal is. So you can help execute my mission by hitting that like button. Okay, now what else was there? That was it, wasn't it? The 2 topics and a quick Q&A. So we're on 8:30 now, so I'm going to do a nice sort of 10 minutes or so of Q&A, and then I'll sign off, guys. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, some people using pool filter sand. That's good. Michael, Largent, dirt, question mark. Yeah, some people actually literally dig up garden soil and put it in their tank, and then they'll top it off with a sand or gravel. My fear of that is there's no control. There's no kind of, you don't know what you're putting in your tank. There's so many kind of organics in there, and yeah, I just prefer to spend a little bit more money and buy something that's a proven performer. We've got another couple of super chats. Thank you so much. Candy, thank you. And Jimmy S. Whiskey, thank you, mate. Thank you, George. Much love from across the pond. Yeah, we need to get together, Jimmy. We have a bit of an online joke that Jimmy's going to be my D-Rock. D-Rock's the guy that follows around. Oh, God, I was listening to him earlier. Gary Vaynerchuk just basically just follows him and films him everywhere he goes. So Jimmy, if you didn't know, check out his channel, S Whiskey. He works with Aquarium Co-op with Corey, and he's basically their kind of full-time photographer and video editor and filmmaker. Really, really talented guy. He's got his own Facebook group as well. Really, really cool guy. Met him in America at the Aquatic Experience in New Jersey. And we didn't chat for very long, but we hit it off really, really well, and just a genuinely top guy and super talented as well. So he's welcome here anytime. Okay, and thank you to Candy as well for the super chat. Really appreciated. Another super chat. Ginger Graves, thank you. Howdy from Tennessee. How do I know when to add supplemental nutrients like potassium or phosphates or iron? Thanks. Hi, Ginger. Thanks for the super chat. And thanks. I think I saw you wearing a Keep On Scaping t-shirt as well earlier today. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome to see. My personal preference with adding nutrients is not to bother with adding specific individual nutrients. So All my tanks, all my aquascapes that I've created over the last sort of 15 years have used a comprehensive all-in-one product. Either back in the day it was like estimative index, so I was mixing dry salts, and now it's a liquid fertilizer. I use the Aquascaper complete liquid plant food, and these contain an ideal ratio of nutrients. And as long as you're adding enough of that, and I add it every day, then you can guarantee the plants will never go nutrient deficient of any nutrients, because we deliberately add almost too many, because the plants can deal with that. They have a thing called luxury uptake, and that means they just take in any excess. And if you've got a healthy planted tank system, excess nutrients don't cause algae. It just means that the plants, are going to be super happy. Much better to dose too much than not enough. So my advice to you would be just to invest in a decent quality liquid fertilizer. In the US, Thrive is very popular, and there's very similar composition to the Aquascaper complete liquid plant food. There's Tropica specialized as well, and they're all very, very similar ingredients in a similar ratio. So just invest in one of these and dose it every day. My usual recommendation is for, let's say you've got a 20-gallon aquarium, high energy, so good lighting, good CO2 injection, good circulation. You want to be adding about at least 5 milliliters a day, which is about half a capful. That is, my kind of general recommendation. But if you, on my channel, there is a video all about liquid fertilizers. If you just type in George Farmer complete liquid plant food on YouTube search, you'll see probably 2 or 3 videos, and it goes into more detail about how these things work. T Riddle, how in the world do you plant immersed grown plants and not have melting? Immersed grown, this is another topic. This is probably going to be I'll do one more question after this, because this is quite a big topic and it'll take me a few minutes to answer it. So if you want a guaranteed question answering, leave me a super chat and I promise you I'll answer it. And then that will probably be it for the evening. I've got lots more to do this evening. So immersed plants. So the Thea T, you're asking melting plants in from immersed growth. The reason your plants are melting is because the plant probably is not healthy to start with, and 2, your system isn't good enough. Basically, I don't want to kind of sound harsh, but there'll be those 2 things, or a combination of the plant isn't healthy or your system isn't good enough. So actually, a healthy emerged grown plant is actually more adaptable than a submersed plant. So that might sound a bit odd. So for those that don't know, an emerged plant is a plant that grows out of water, or emerged, same sort of thing. And a submersed is a plant that grows underwater. So at the moment, all these are submersed. If, for instance, all this water like evaporated or I emptied half of it away, eventually these plants would adapt from their underwater growth form, submersed, to their out of water growth form. In nature, the vast majority of plants grow out of water most of the time, and they only adapt to their underwater growth form once the rainy seasons come and they're flooded. So the common kind of misconception is that you should buy a plant that's already adapted to its submersed growth. Now, the problem with that is, let's say one of you guys wants to buy these crypts right here. Okay. So let's say my pH of my tank right now is 6.8. Let's say it's got a KH of 6 and a GH of 10. I've just plucked those figures out of the air. Actually, I've never ever tested the water in this tank, just as a full disclaimer. But let's just say those figures were true. Now, you bought those plants off me. I shipped them over to you. Number one, the issue with shipping a submersed plant, the plant is super fragile. It has its own weight is supported by the water, so it's actually really kind of floppy, as opposed to emerged plant, a plant that's grown out of water, has to support its own body weight in the air, so it's actually physically more robust. So when you're shipping a submersed plant, it's more likely going to get damaged in transit, and by the time you get it at your place, it's not, a submersed plant isn't happy out of water, obviously. Okay, so by the time you get it at your home, it's going to be struggling already. And then more than likely your water chemistry is going to be different to mine, and the plant is really going to struggle to adapt. Okay, so conversely, let's say you bought a really healthy specimen of this. This is actually Cryptocorini willisii. If you bought this in its immersed state and it was really healthy, let's say you bought it from let's say you got it directly from the nursery, from Tropica or wherever, that's going to be its healthiest point. It's going to ship very well because it's physically robust for reasons we just explained. And actually, it's going to be more adaptable. So it could adapt to my water pH just as well as your water pH. So, it's just a fact. These plants are more adaptable, but they have to be healthy to start with. And you have to have a system that's capable of growing that plant. I'm very lucky. I have access to plants direct from Tropica. I also have aquarium gardens just down the road, and he keeps his plants immersed hydroponically, and he very rarely gets any complaints about the plants melting because, one, the guy buying the plant is buying the plant appropriate for his system, and two, the plant's really healthy and it's going to adapt. Now, I hope that answers that question. I did it in quite a long-winded way and covered quite a lot of topics about immersed, submersed, etc. And I have talked about this subject, on frequent videos, but it is an important topic. And people do get hung up on wanting to buy submersed form plants all the time. And in my experience, 15 years now of growing plants, immersed plants are the way to go. But you have to have the right system and they have to be healthy to start with. Okay, guys, I'm going to go for one more question. So many questions, guys. I don't know what to choose. Okay, let's go for one of the more recent questions. Hyperbuse, thanks for your question. Hey, George, trying to grow red plants. I have inert substrate, but dose liquid fertilizer into water column. Will root tabs promote red coloration or not? Oh, someone's super chatted me a question. Now, guys, those are super chats now. Jake, we've got two. Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to go. Okay, Aquarium Adventures, thanks for your super chat, Graham. Appreciate it. Top tips for adding height to the scape. Two really easy ways, mate. Dominant hardscape or tall plants. You can slope the substrate, so you don't necessarily have to get the tallest of plants, so you can get this height straight away. I would recommend, if you do want to slope the substrate quite steep, then definitely use a soil substrate because it's more porous. It allows more oxygen penetration. We talked about substrates in detail already. Don't slope it steep if you're just using like a sand because it will compact and you'll get these anaerobic areas. But tall plants, Vallis is a classic. You're going to get height there. These here, this Cryptocorini, Wendetii Moyoya, and Eusteriana and Balanci, all tall crypts. And then not obviously, but you can use dominant hardscape, wood, big bits of wood coming out the top of the tank if you've got a rimless tank, or dominant pieces of stone. And don't be shy. More hardscape the better. So hopefully that answers your question. I've got another super chat now. Wow. T, thanks for your time. You're welcome. Thanks for asking that really good question. It was a really good opportunity to explain a few things. Jake, thank you for the super chat, mate. Really appreciate it. Hi, George. Hope you're well. Can we get the Webicusa paludarium in the UK? First scape shown on your ADA Switzerland video. Yeah, at the moment there's no sort of dedicated UK distributor for ADA. I have been chatting with European Aquaristic, the owner, and he has been kind of given the task of hopefully getting more ADA stuff into the UK. So hopefully this will be coming. I would chat with there's a few guys that could potentially get it over for you. So there's a new shop opening in Norwich called Scaped Nature. This is a bit of an exclusive, actually. Check it out on Facebook. They've got their own Facebook page now, Scaped Nature. You might have seen a couple of videos of Ray. If you remember Ray, he's got the awesome low-tech nano tanks. I've done 2 or 3 videos with Ray now. He's opening in a new store in Norwich in the east of England, and I'm helping him. I've been consulting with him for a few months now and giving him advice on how to. This is funny. I've just got a message off Tom Barr. That's cool. Yeah, so maybe touch base with Ray or Aquarium Gardens. Give Dave a bell. Give Dave a ring. He can potentially order it in for you. And who else? That's top of my head. That's it. Depends where you live. Really, it's probably. But they can ship it to you. I'm going to be honest with you, Jake. It is not a cheap system, so do just sort of bear that in mind. I'm not dissing ADA, but just be aware that it is an expensive setup. I mean, in Switzerland, it's expensive anyway. I'm not going to give you a figure because it wouldn't be appropriate, because I can't give you an exact figure. But yeah, hopefully you can find it. So Aquarium Gardens or Scape Nature. They'd be my 2 kind of contacts to go for. More super chats. I can't go because you guys are keeping me super chats. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Emmanuel Ramirez, $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Pros and cons of RO/DI water. Does it help with algae prevention? Thanks for the great content, George. Thank you, Emmanuel, for the question and the super chat. RO/DI water, does it help with algae prevention? Simple answer is no. What does help with RO prevention? What does help with algae prevention is super healthy plant growth. I very rarely used RO for a few months, years back. And I've just used my tap water ever since. I've lived in 3 or 4 locations with different water chemistries, and I've succeeded with pretty much every plant I've tried to grow, with the exception of Utricularia graminifolia. And the best prevention for algae is to focus on healthy plant growth. The regular things. Appropriate lighting, not too high, not too low. Too high, you get algae. Too low, you're not going to grow your plants. CO2 injection, ideally, you're going to get the best results with CO2 injection. Good nutrients through the soil or substrate. We talked about that already. Liquid fertilizers. Good circulation and filtration to keep your water quality good and to get those nutrients moving around the tank to feed the plants. And then good water quality. In terms of good maintenance practices. So frequent, regular, large water changes, at least 50% once a week. Daily liquid fertilizers. Don't overstock with fish. Don't overfeed fish. Nail all those things. Buy loads of plants. Make sure those plants are healthy. And then you won't get algae. Simple as that. Okay, guys, I'm going to really have to go. Thank you so much. Honeybee, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. I'm definitely going now, and thank you, guys. Aquarium Co-op, thanks for joining, Corey. Massive fan. Check out, you've probably all subscribed to Corey already. He's got an epic channel. Okay, quick shout out to HPS Aquatics. Give me a like, guys, if you've enjoyed the content. There's 171 of you watching. Let's see if we can get it to 100 likes, and then I'll go. And that's going to stop you from liking it, isn't it? Maybe. So if we get to 100 likes, then I'll do a special shout out to a few of you. Where best to contact? Get your help. You can email me, guys, at keeponscaping@gmail.com. I get absolutely inundated with requests for help. I can't answer you all, and I do offer a bit of a kind of plug for my services, but I do offer one-to-one Skype or FaceTime or Google Hangouts consultations. So if you do want some one-to-one advice, aquascaping advice, algae advice, any kind of planted aquarium advice. I've done 3 or 4 now. And if you email me at keeponscaping@gmail.com, we can set up a call, and I can tell you how much it's going to cost you, and we can take it from there. Other than that, if you want free advice, I recommend the UK Aquatic Plant Society forum, ukaps.org/forum. Some really great guys on there, happy to give their advice for free. Okay, I'm going to go now. You take care. Keep on scaping. Cheerio. Thanks for the super chats. Really appreciate it. Bye-bye. End stream. Boosh.